attended a forum, and in this forum, the facilitator was speaking of something amazing, something that touched the crowd. And look, he said, when it comes to our potentials in life, no matter which age we are in, we can still achieve whatever life means for us. And in this forum, the age were also there. And a gentleman who was 51 by then had to question the facilitator and stated that, look, I have lived a life of fancy, but I ended up losing everything. And look, I am a retired person already. So fed up and having nothing now to do. And all my hopes and dreams have been shattered with no hope that I can even still now do something better. The facilitator looked at him with a calm voice and answered that when it comes to our life purposes and fulfillments of our callings that God has spared us for, it is not about age. The facilitator continued by saying that you can still become somebody, achieve the things that you're made for, and can still do all the things that can define what success means to you at even that age. For when it comes to our potential, it has no shelf life, and dreams have got no expiry date. We all stared for a moment, and we wondered sometimes why others who are in their 60s would be having a mindset and living a life like they're still in their teens, while those in their late 20s would be having a bigger and a broader mindset with defined plans and mega achievements of life than the one who might be in their 80s. You know what? We are spared to live. But when it comes to fulfillment, not everyone fulfills what they're meant for. It hurts to meet people who have lived for long without a purpose in life. And later they come to a conclusion by saying that I wasted my years. In fact, there are moments in life that we sit and mourn because we feel like our future has been jilted. We feel like the years when we were able to do the things that we were supposed to do have already expired. And we feel like we haven't done enough with the opportunities that we had in the past, with the resources that we had, and with the strength that we had, but did nothing about it. Ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to fulfillments of dreams, when it comes to our purposes in life, and when it comes to the question of what can I do at which age, every culture has got its own blueprint. Our locations in life gives us also a prescription of what we must do and what we must not do at a certain age. And even the state or the countries we live in would have shaped and defined what life must look like and the achievements that must come at a particular age. All those factors prescribes for us where we must be at which age. Have you ever taken time to wonder why Jesus Christ never began doing his mission and his work the Father sent him for before reaching 30? There's a confusion in life in that they say if you have not yet reached a particular age like this, you cannot yet go for such and such. Welcome to the Elevator Podcast, We are into our episode 6 of our elevator podcast, aimed at speaking words, knowledge, and insights meant to lift you from where you are right now to where you want to be. Yes, this where you are right now. This where you hope also to be in the later way. But this podcast gives you insights, reveals for you secrets, and answers some of the hard and tough questions of life. And in this podcast, we not only stop at analyzing and giving you precise information on what it takes to have a personal growth, but we also give you book review, and we scan the brain behind some of the wise quotes and the wise words that has ever been spoken and the ones that have ever been written in different books. We scan those insights and we share it in a simplified form so that you can pick a clue of whatever the author was meaning, and also pick insights and knowledge from a particular quote of the old times and of our new era. And in this podcast, we are privileged to let you know that we are into our episode 6, and we are discussing, or we are continuing with our series of fences. We are going to pick right from where we stopped in the previous episode, and today we are going to speak of something amazing when it comes to the other form of fence that keeps always tying us and maybe perhaps stopping us to reach our different potentials of life. And from our earlier description of what a fence is, as we defined in the previous episodes, it states that other people build fences to keep you in, while the others build fences to keep you out. You are either in the fence. In other words, you are either into doing the things that you are supposed to do, or you are out of the fence. In other words, you might be limited from reaching your potential. And life has built around us different fences that in this series of fences, we are going to be breaking down bit by bit what type of fences has always tied us, the fences that has always kept us out of success, and the fences that has equally kept others in for success. Fences of life. Others build fences to keep you in, while the others build fences to keep you out. And when it comes to one of the most fascinating aspects of the fences we have, that has always defined what life should be to us, that fence has always resonated with eons of time now, and it has always been part of our communities and society. It has been part of the state laws, and it has been part of our cultures that has always shaped us and gave us a different reasoning for when it comes to achievements and prescribing for us our potentials. Those fences are so powerful that if we don't consider those fences, we are either going to not reach our potentials of life and never meet our life purposes in life. Or when we are to know of the secrets, we can surely go for whatever life callings could be for us. And in today's episode, we are going to speak about age, something that cuts across all the places. It cuts across the young, the old, the matured, those in colleges. It cuts across everyone. It cuts across those who have achieved and those who are yet to achieve. It cuts across those who have achieved in the past and they still continued achieving. Whereas it also cuts across those who wished to achieve, but because of this phase, they never achieved. For people build fences to keep you in or to keep you out. Age is just a number. It's what we are going to be speaking of in today's podcast. And in today's pod, we are going to answer hard questions of life. The questions of, what is my destiny? How will life look like when I'm in my late 20s, when I'm in my 30s, when I'm in my 40s, 50s, when I'm in my 60s, when I'm in my 70s, or even perhaps in my 80s? What will life look like? What will be the blueprint of life for me? And in today's pod, we are equally going to also answer a question of what can I do by now in order to play later? What should I do then at this particular age in order for me to have a fancy and fulfillment of life in the future? And the sketch of life we are going to reveal to you today will reflect your own past, will give a blueprint of your current, present, and it will also predict the future based on the many factors untold to you. But for today's edition, you are going to be discovering those secrets which has for long been kept untold to you. Age is just a number. It's our today's focus of the pod. And welcome to the podcast. But before we start, allow us get our quote of the pod. And in our today's quote, we are taking it from Maya Angelou. She's the one who stated that, do it better until you know it better. And when you've known it better, do it better. You are in a particular stage in life right now. You have more stages even ahead of you. And that process of experiencing life from birth to death is what we call life course. And you go through different ages. But what about life course? How does age have anything to do with us when it comes to achievements and fulfillments of life? It could be perhaps your question, but here is the fact. Our life course, where we are particularly in a particular age right now, affects our behaviors and our orientations about life. For you cannot think of life the same way when you are in your teens. Like right now, you are thinking of life in a different way because maybe perhaps you're in your 40s. We think differently about life depending on the stages that we are in. That is what exactly life course does for us. And it's still the same thing. Your life differs by location, your life differs by social class, your life differs by the race and ethnicity, and your life differs also by gender. And age is one of the main factors of this. When you are at a certain age, in a certain location, life may not be the same with the one of that particular same age you are sharing with than the one that would be in a diaspora, in a country that has everything, in a country where policies have been reviewed and reversed. Life cannot be the same for the both of you. In fact, this might be the main point you need to learn for today. Life will look different. The magnitude of success you are likely to achieve in life at a particular age depends on the factors of location, social class, your race or ethnicity, and perhaps your gender. Those elements and factors give exactly what age means when it comes to achievements. Now, look at it this way. Let's say I'm in my late 30s and I'm living in Africa, maybe perhaps in East Africa. Life may not be the same. Our achievements may not be the same with someone who shares the same age like I, from maybe the United States, from maybe Russia. Life would be different for the both of us because when it comes to age, location sets the tone. When it comes to age, social class sets the tone. When it comes to our ages and making comparison that we are age mates in a particular way, it does not mean even our levels of success might be the same. Why? Because there are factors that governs what exactly we must achieve. That's why Allah stated that age gives us a prescription of what life must look like and what we must have at a particular age. That is exactly what we are going to be speaking of in full depth in the later while. And if you could ever wonder why some people who are in a particular age might be having tremendous achievement or even a greater reasoning, yet they could be younger in life as in age. Whereas you compare it with someone who perhaps you think is very aged, but when you look at the achievements, when you look at the level of success, when you look at the different factors, you'll find that the one who is in their 20s has tremendous achievements than the one who could be in their 80s. Their difference might be so big that the gap cannot be even breached up. And not only that, their mindset, their thinking capacity, and their attitudes towards certain things also sets a different type of ball. And you'll get to find out that the people who are huge, big enough, bold enough, but when you compare their age and the level of success, it's not commensurate. And if I may ask you, why do you think someone in their 20s would be living a life so full like the ones who might have been in even their 70s? And yet, you look on the other side, it is opposite. That is what it means by the power of age being a fence to us. And as we have defined that a fence is something that keeps us in or keeps us out. And I've mentioned for you some of the few factors of what it may make life be like and at which age should life be like, depending on those factors. But as we dig deep into our today's pod, allow us get into history because we believe that those who understand history can predict the future. In the past, there are different stages of life, and that is what exactly we need to summarize before we get to a drawing conclusion here. You first recall on your childhood experience. How was it? Now, historians stated that way back in the 1960s, as it is being noted, that childhood, by the time it was AD 1000 to 1800, children were viewed as adult. So they got involved in adulthood activities and they dressed clothing like adults. As historians stated that if you could look at the portrait or the family gallery of such children, you would get to just see them as young adults who are living. And imagine you are below 12 years. Let's say if you're recalling your years those days, by the time you are 12 years. But your different views could not be separated. In fact, you could not have a defined purpose of life yet. However, by the time you are 12 years or perhaps below, you are also viewed differently. That's why I stated that what defines success to us depends on our location. You could be in a location where, or you could have lived in an era where children were viewed as adults, like these historians have stated. Or you maybe had a childhood experience at an era where they were viewing children as mini-matured people. That is exactly what it sets the ball different. And imagine, let's say, for example, at 7 years, you were expected to do certain activities of life, depending on how the culture could have defined it for you, depending on how the state could have defined or prescribed it for you, depending on what it means for people of that particular age, depending on how the different factors could have set the tone for you. But historians stated that way back in 1000 AD to 1800, a child, when was 7 years, that child was eligible for leaving home and go to do some other things else in life in order to become someone in life. That is for boys. And history states that in those era, a lady who is 7 years old, or a girl, we put it in quotes, could stay at home, but could be shown how exactly to maintain now marriage. And as she lived in their home, she would always own shares of what it takes to take on household responsibility or housewife responsibilities. That is exactly what happened in those historical era. How was yours anyway? You first take a moment to reflect. How was your childhood experience and how were you viewed by then when you were a child? And compare it to how today we view children. We view them so differently in that we don't only stop at viewing them, but we also get to consider them as people who need tender care. We must get to know that all childhood moment could have occurred at a particular point of history, and your childhood moment would have even equally occurred at a different era of history. And they depended on the location, they depended on the social class, and they depended on the gender, which determine what your childhood would look like. And the characters that accomplished those kind of age and also the perspective of who you are supposed to be at that particular age or in the childhood and how your childhood was to be considered can tell the tale and can give you a clue of what childhood meant for you in that era. And equally, you can view it too with the current situations of how we view children. And it is from there that we also give a conclusion. But when it comes to era of history and also our particular ages of life, one thing cuts across. You know what? Our experiences during our childhood moment is what sets the difference. Let me repeat this. Our experiences in our childhood moments is what sets the difference. You could be considered a child, but your location would have gotten specific kind of task that you're supposed to do at that particular age, compared to the other one who could be in a different location as well. Now, let's get into another segment of what age looks like for other people as well. You've ever heard of this statement of adolescence? We could predict it that biologically from 13 to perhaps 18, it's this stage called adolescence. But there's something we need to also understand when it comes to adolescence as being one of the stages of life or courses of life. In early centuries, this stage wasn't existing according to proof from history, because by then, children could get from childhood to adulthood without in-between moments of twist. But the Industrial Revolution changed this. How? In that, remember when you were a child, you could just jump from childhood to adulthood, meaning that you could jump from being a child to taking responsibility immediately in life. However, when Industrial Revolution came, it changed the perspective of how children were supposed to jump from childhood to adulthood and the sets of responsibility that should carry upon that age. However, this is what settled the difference. When the Industrial Revolution came in, people in their teens were not needed as workers, and education became more important for achieving success. Two factors that changed everything. And as a repercussion of those factors, it created what we call a gap in stage. That now comes with characters of uncertainty and characters of rebellion and characters of inner turmoil, the stresses that comes later on. Note this point. If you observe those who are in the adolescent stage, you'll get to find out that they have questions, more questions in life than the answers they already have. That's why they're always rebellious, and that's why most of them are always having behavioral problem, if I could say it that way. And to respond to what the Industrial Revolution has brought in, by then, different cultures and different tribes had to come with different innovations to see that their children still finds their identity in life. In that, even though there's this gap already, even though they say you cannot yet be successful when you don't have the qualifications, or you have not yet achieved the education, or you cannot be needed as a worker when you're a minor, that is exactly something that different tribes came in to fill the gap. And what different tribes came up with, it's on ground of giving them identity to make them feel that they are able, they are matured, and they have the potential. Different tribes, I'm giving you like one of the tribes in Africa that is from South Sudan. The Dinka tribe has a way of making lines on foreheads of the youth or the children, male children, who are within the age of 13 to 17. And different tribes, of course, in different side of the world, they have different phenomena of what childhood should look like or what adulthood should look like. In that, by having those kind of cultural rituals, they give their children, or they give those who are within this age bracket, a self-identity to make them fit in the society. But the dilemma would still remain. Remember, the practice can be conducted. Yes, you can be considered an adult, irrespective of your age, as long as you have conducted those rituals of life as set by cultures and different tribes. However, the dilemma still remains one. The question that always disturbs you day and night when you are at that age bracket. And it's the question of, I'm not a child, nor an adult. Who I am? That question, it is a dilemma for those who are within that age bracket. Now, to shape their identity, due to a feeling of being left behind, they develop their different own pairs. They come up with their own subcultures with distinctive kind of dressing, hairstyles, languages, gestures, and the type of music they always feel. You've ever observed this? The adolescent stage of life, which prescribe what life should look like for them. After lack of identity, after feeling lost, after dealing with the question of who am I? Am I a child or am I an adult? Those questions with those dilemmas together coming in makes you get to question yourself certain things. And through those questions, you now start developing your own identity. You start now identifying the people that rhymes with your style of clothing, hairstyle, language, and gesture, plus also what the likes could be. Adolescence is a stage of confusion, if you never knew this, with wanting to be your own, but when being limited. They feel like they need to do something. They feel like they need to have something. They feel like they need to become independent. They always have that feeling, and yet they are limited. Why? Because you cannot become that something you are having in mind, simply because you yet don't have the qualifications needed. Or they don't need your service because you are still a minor. And because you have that kind of tranquility in whatever you feel like you should do, that's why you now start doing things in a rebellious way and doing things that you are not yet certain for. That is a different stage as well of life. And how about other stages? It is a stage called transitional stage. And this is the most important stages of all. Transitional stage, as biologically, people say it is starting from 18 years to 30 years. In that, at this stage, you are leaving the stage of being a child, an adolescent person, and now you are transitioning into another era of life where your mindset changes a while, and also how you view the world starts becoming distinctive. It is start looking different on the other hand. And how does it come about? Of course, after school, you start maybe adulthood responsibilities, or perhaps you even keep postponing them. You are at this stage and you're free from the control of your parents, perhaps. Yet, you may not be having all what it takes to support your own self. That is the difference. You have reached a stage where you cannot be controlled. You have reached a stage where you can even take on some responsibilities, or you are postponing some responsibilities and avoiding them. However, in this stage, you are not yet having the capability and the potential on your own to support yourself. And perhaps it could also happen this way. After college, many still continue living in their parents' home before starting off to live their own cheaply. And also, at this age, you establish a career. Could be the one you've studied for, or the one that you're just developing, either through talent, through art, and through different ways of your potentials. It is from this stage that you start having a defined way of how life should look like. That's why you now established a career that you need to follow and a blueprint of how life should look like. And of course, it may happen that way, or it may not happen that way, because you're still in the process of finding the self. You're still in a process of self-discovery. Of course, at this stage, some get into responsibility or adulthood responsibilities, and some take jobs. A few of them find good work and what to start off life with. Some become serious at a chosen career, and some get engaged into courtship. Some even perhaps get into marriages, and not all. And they start getting into debts. This is the principle of how this age takes most of the people. If you're making it in ratio, you can say a ratio of maybe 2 to 9. Most people are falling within that 9 ratio. Or in percentage, we could say that out of 100% of people within this age bracket, the few characters we have mentioned above, 90% of the people within this age bracket will be going through that, either on the other side or on this other side, where you are now studying what it means by responsibility. You're transitioning from the childhood mentality and adolescent mentality to adulthood mentality, to taking care of your own future, to having your own responsibility, and to stop blaming why things are happening the way they are happening. You take the full responsibility. This is what says the difference with this stage here. And of course, it depends on the type of vision you still have. It still goes across your choices of life, because it can't just happen from the blue. And as we get into the other stage of life, in summary, we have a stage, we call it the middle years. This is from age 30 to 65. But in this age of middle years, or this stage of middle years, we have it divided into two. There's that of the early bird years of this stage, which starts from 30 to 50 years. And the later ones, that start from 50 years to 65, or even perhaps 70 years. Now, here is the breakdown. When you are 30 years to 50, that early stage of your middle years of life, most are more sure of themselves and the goals they have in their life. I need you to note the point. When you are at this age, you are very conscious of what life must be. You have already defined exactly what you need to die for. Your life goals are now specific at this age. And you are now very sure of yourself as you get stabilized. However, even amidst those kind of defined purpose, even amidst that kind of blueprint, even amidst that kind of description of life, there comes another tragedy of life. And do you know what that is? It is at this age that most of the setbacks are being experienced. Agree with me or not, but you might be one of the person who have gone through this. It is from this stage that you will have setbacks in life, great setbacks in life. It is from this stage that you may likely lose all you have started. You may lose it to different calamities of life, maybe even losing your job, being downsized. It is from this stage that most of the divorce are being experienced, that stage from 30 to 50 years. I believe you could get to personally experience this. And when it comes to those things, when those challenges have already happened, it is very hard for you to come out of them. Let's take, for example, when you have gotten or encountered a setback in life. It is very hard for you to come out of that setback, especially when it is so big and huge for you. It is hard always to stabilize in life at that particular time. This age is also filled with reality of things. That is another good character of this age. It is filled with different realities of how things are. It's where you experience too little time, too many demands, and perhaps little sleep, because you are now facing the reality of life. You are now getting to understand what it means by what life is. You now get to resignate and align with what exactly it means and what it takes to achieve certain things in life. This is exactly one of the common character of this age bracket. As someone one time stated to me that grass looked green from afar. Yes, by the time you are young, you could maybe assume it is easy to get successful in life. You assume it is easy to achieve certain things in life. But when you reach this age, that is when you get to know that indeed the grass which was looking green from afar is not actually green. And let's get into the other second phase of this middle state of age or of our life course. It is what we call the later stage, which starts from 50 years to 65 years. Now, from here, you again get slowing down a while. The breeze becomes a little bit cooler, in that you start having health issues. Maturity begins. Your body keeps changing and sending signals to you. It is this time that you start now getting the fundamental reorientations of life, in that your thinking will be so different, because it is from this stage that you are now having a different perspective of life. It is from this stage that you are wondering what life would be like for the rest of the years you are left with. And it is from this stage that you start making comparison between the time you were born, the achievements that you had, and also the time that you are left to achieve other things in life. It is from this stage of 50 years to 65 years. That is biologically according to the changes and the dynamics of life in almost all parts of the world. However, it is from this time that you start evaluating your past and what lies ahead. It is from this stage that regrets of life start coming in. And when we talk of regret, it means that you are now making a comparison of what has been achieved with the ones that you only wished for and you never achieved them at the time that you were supposed to achieve them. It is from this time that others start regretting why they missed other opportunities of life when they still had the opportunity of doing that. It is from this time that the reality of life gets to pinch you with the hard truth of it. And it is from this age that life is filled with sorrows for those who have not achieved. In fact, it is from this age, ladies and gentlemen, that you get to resonate with your callings. As Les Brown one time stated that which ghosts will be surrounding your deathbed. But it's not now about deathbed right now. When you are at this age, it is the moment that those dreams that you had in the past, which has not been achieved, start getting back to you, asking you that we came to you and you had the potential to give us life. But look, you never did anything to it. It is from this stage that such conversation inwardly will be experienced. And this conversation will give you another kind of life that will be filled with loneliness, that may be filled with regrets and sorrows. It is at this stage that those conversations with the dreams that came to you in order for you to give them life and you did nothing to it would be facing you one-on-one. In this stage, ladies and gentlemen, it's the time that you get to ask yourself, did I pay it in the past and I'm playing it now? Or did I play it in the past and I'm now paying it now? As it is always from the old quote that stated that pay now, play later, or play now and pay later. It is from that moment of life at this age that the real reflection of this quote gets to resonate with your remaining part of your life. For those who have played it without paying it in the past will now be regretting why they never paid at the moment they had the opportunity. In other words, they will be regretting why they didn't take the action at a time needed for them to take the action. Whereas the others who paid it by then would be playing it. In other words, those who took the initiative, those who did whatever they were supposed to do in order to get successful, those who did what it takes in order for them to achieve certain things in future will now be having a real bargain and a real reward. In other words, they will be enjoying the fruits of their labors in the past. They will be now having that kind of fulfillments in life. And that is from this stage that it gets to resonate. And in this stage, if you paid it earlier, you will now be playing it in ways of being comfortable, enjoying your security in life, securing your marriages. You will be enjoying the best standard of life. You'll be having bigger houses. You'll be driving newer cars. you'll be taking longer and more exotic vacation. And for those who had children and they did the best for their children in order for them to grow well in life, they took them to best schools, they ensured that they gave everything to their children. By this time, their children would now be grown up, and perhaps they could be even be working, and they could be now supporting them. But that depends on how you are responding to life by the time you had the strength yet. And the opposite is very true. For those, let's say for example, who had children and never bothered at all, it is from this moment that they start regretting why they did such acts to their children, where they need now the support from their children, but their children are no longer available for them. It is from this stage, ladies and gentlemen. You might be far from reaching this stage yet. You might not even be sure whether you're going to reach this stage. But I'm giving you a caution today that the life you're living today, the choices you're making today, it's either making you to pay now so that in the later time when you reach this age, you can get to play later. Or you could be at a particular age right now and life could be so amazing for you. And yet, you are playing around with it. But when the play is done, when the final whistle is finally blown, you now start paying later. In which ways regrets, sorrows will be surrounding you and filling you from whatever point of life, especially when you never took the initiative and the responsibility needed in order for you to come in common with what life purposes were supposed to be. And from this stage, you can now firmly plant yourself and you have fewer uncertainties of life to happen. In other words, you're not worried of now what will happen next because you've finally established yourself, you've finally planted yourself, and you've finally penetrated through the roots of achievements, and it is now paying off. It is at this time that you enjoy most. As we conclude with the last stages of this year, or the last stages of life, as the last stage of it all, it starts from 65 and beyond. It is from this stage that still, as a result of your choices in the past, gives you the moment of isolation that can harm your body and your brain. It is from this stage that those people enjoy some of the things that they needed most in life. The one who love reading the scripture, it is from this time that they will read it the most. It's from this age bracket of 65 and above. But it hurts when now you are 65 and above and still struggling for life. You're still bargaining for life. And you are still regretting why you never used the most precious stages of life, which was your youth stage. It is from this moment here. I watched a movie. In fact, it's an entire project. It's called the 100 Plus Project. I landed upon those videos and I watched how life looked like for those who are now in their 100 years. And truth be told, everything about this stage, it's what I've revealed here. The isolation, the painful sorrows, or perhaps mourning over those who have maybe gone and left them as in name of death. Those kind of all things where they feel like, yes, they've enjoyed enough, but they still need to enjoy more. It is from that stage that even what you've enjoyed becomes now useless to you, or what you're enjoying becomes of no purpose to you. It is from those stages of 65 years and above. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude our today's podcast, allow us mention this word. You see, what we have mentioned might be circumstance that surrounds what biologically it means by life. However, there are some social factors that influences our everything in life. Age is just a number. Let's note this. Age, it's just a number and will always be a number. But it cannot define what life should look like for us. You can still be in your 20s and still achieve like someone who might be in their 50s. You can still be in your 50s and still have less in achievement than maybe someone in their teens. That might not be a big differentiator, but the differentiator is the factors, the social locations, the social class, and the different factors that we have mentioned earlier on. And above all, the individual factor. In which ways? Individual factors, it's directly the choices you are going to make today in order to shape a better tomorrow. As I stated, you either might be paying it now in order to play later, or you are either playing it now and you are getting to pay it later in regrets. It now gets to your individual choices. Choose what is right. Choose the life that has been designed well. The other factors can determine. We don't hesitate it. But above all, the choices that you make today, the daily consistency of discipline, it's what determines what next with life. As some old person one time stated, that I sorrow for what I could have been, not for what I've become. It is a powerful statement. He stated, and he was very aged and advanced in age, but his statement reveals the regret of life. He stated that I sorrow for what I could have become, not for what I have become. As we conclude our today's podcast, allow us get into our book review segment. And in our book review segment, we are starting chapter 2 of a book we have been reviewing for the past episode of our pod. We are getting it back to Think and Grow Rich. Everything in life is a result of what our thoughts are. It is your thought that can take you to fulfillments of life, or even perhaps avoid you from the fulfillments of life. The power of thought, it's what sets the difference from just wishing and desiring and giving you achievement. It is from the power of quotes, of thoughts, that gives you the tranquilities after achievement. And Think and Grow Rich, it's a book that has sold thousands and thousands of copies and millions of copies as well, over 15 million copies worldwide. It's a book which has been written earlier, way back those days, and it was still updated and reversed in the 21st century, suitable for also you who is living right now. And we are starting chapter 2 of this book. So amazing. And it speaks of desire, which chapter 2 of this book stated as the starting point of all achievements. You see, when it comes to having opportunities in life, everyone has got opportunities. And everyone has got burning desires that consume them day and night. However, the wishes that we have in form of hope and also in form of desires might be so definite that can take us to go for that thing, or can still make us not go for that thing. And everyone has got desires, that is very true. But a few manifest it into reality. Whenever people have desire, the first attempt is that the result may not be the way they were expecting. And as the result is not in the way they're expecting, some give a stop. One amazing fact that this book speaks of is that our desires might exist, but it takes a plan for us to achieve those goals. It takes us a purpose of redesigning what life should look like in order for us to achieve whatever our desires in life could be. And as I may read from this book, it is something fascinating in that sometimes we get to start doing the things that we were desiring, and yet we don't meet the right thing that we hoped or viewed in mind earlier on. So what ends up happening? We now start developing the attitude of, maybe if I don't get encouraged, I'm going to leave this, I'm going to quit this. And it makes all the plans and desires that you have not to be achieved, simply because you have started having a different kind of mindset and attitude towards that thing that you had started going for. That's why I stated that Think and Grow Rich is a book that can still give you the insights needed in order for you to get exactly to achieving your dream. In fact, this chapter, there's one part I love about this chapter that stated of a story. Some years ago, a great warrior had to take a decision which he ensured his success on the battlefield. He was about to send his armies against a powerful army that were waiting for them across the other side of the river. And as they loaded their boats, they sailed into the other enemy's country, and they unloaded everything that they've gone with, including their equipments. Then gave the order to the soldier to burn the ship that they used to cross the river or to cross the lake on the other side. And after the ship was set into fire, he had to address his armies by saying that, you see, our ship that we traveled with, it's now being burnt to smoke. You can see the smoke rising up, and our enemies have already noticed that we are here. And it is now our choices right now. You see the boat already going into smoke. And this means that we can't leave the shores alive unless we win. Now, have no choice but the choice to win or the choice to perish. To cut the story short, in this book, it stated that this group of army won the battle. Why? Simply because what they were hoping and relying in order for them to flee away from their enemies, was turned into smoke. And it reminds us of life sometimes, in that we get so comfortable with the things that we can fall back to, the cushions of life, as I may call it, in that whenever we experience any small type of challenge, the moment we started having desires, we fall back simply because those things are existing. But if we develop an attitude of burning our boats, or burning the things that we shall rely on to seek safety and comfort, to burn those bridges, it will make us surely get to achieve whatever we needed to achieve. And as I may read some paragraphs from this second chapter here, it says that every human being who understands the purpose of money wishes for it. Wishing will not bring riches, but desire or desiring riches with a state of mind that becomes an obsession, then planning definite ways and means to acquire riches, and backing those plans with persistence, which does not recognize failure, will bring riches. A powerful statement to take home in this pod. And to summarize our today's book review, there's some amazing step which has been revealed here, in that whenever you have a desire, whenever you have a plan to achieve certain things in life, if you follow this prescription, you can surely yet achieve that dream, no matter the age you are in. It is stated that one thing is that you need to fix your mind to the exact thing that you need and the things that you're desiring. That is the first point you need to note out. Saying that I want plenty of this, saying that I need this, wishing it only, may not be the case here. But have your mind fixed onto that exact thing. The second step you need to take is that you need to determine exactly what you intend to give in return for that thing you're desiring. For there's no such thing like something for nothing. That's according to what the book has written here, or what the author has written on this page. And the other step is that you need to establish a definite data, in that when you intend to possibly achieve that thing that you're desiring. And above all, the next step is that you need to create a definite plan for carrying out your desires. And begin at once, whether you're ready or not, to put those plans into action. A lot of people have got plans, but their plans are only in a stage of wishes. But the moment you desire, and the moment you've created a plan, it doesn't matter whether you're ready or not ready, because there will be no prior time that you're going to be ready. Every time will feel like a time which is not yet right. But there's not been a right time in life for doing certain things. Just like there's no stage in life that can limit you, or maybe the certain age of life that can make us say that it is from this age that you're supposed to do this and that. When it comes to life desires, all those things are just a suggestion. It is not a reality. They're just opinions. But they cannot drive away your focus unless you wish it anyway. And the other step you should take is that you need to write out a clear statement of everything needed in order for you to acquire that thing you are desiring. You need to name the time limit for acquiring it. You need to state what you intend to give in return after achieving that desire. And you need to describe clearly the plan through which you intend to accumulate the things that you're desiring. What a powerful advice given in this book. And the last step, ladies and gentlemen, is that when you have written all those, when you have the answers to all those we have mentioned, review it twice in a day, at least in the morning when you wake up, or in the evening when you're getting to rest. See it clearly, and the moment you are seeing this and reviewing this every day on a daily basis, morning and evening, read, see, and feel and believe that you are already in possession of that thing you're desiring. Use this step, because this is the step I learned and used, and it helped achieve certain things in life. Even the many people who have ever achieved, you hear of people going for times of meditation. What do? It is the step of the things we have mentioned that they go to meditate. Do you even often have moments of meditation? Do you have moments where you switch off the lights in your room and you perhaps sit on your thinking seat and you get to recall how your day has been, or you get to envision what your desires are? Do you take time to always have this humble moment spared alone, walking through the nature or seated watching the sky as you reflect on exactly what you're desiring. That is exactly what it means by the power of desires coming true. Because everyone has desires, but a few get to achieve them. As we conclude today's podcast, you could re-listen to this pod via our YouTube channel at the Elevator Podcast 256. You can as well as follow me via my different social handles: LinkedIn at Joshua Oyepa, Instagram at Joshua Oyepa, X at Joshua Oyepa, Facebook at Joshua Oyepa, and TikTok at Joshua Oyepa. From me to you, it has been a pleasing pleasure. Till again in the next episode.